My name is Kiasho. I'm a plush maker by trade. I think that's probably why you came here. That's the only hat.
This is ours. Other hat. Ours.
I don't know. Anyway, oh, it's on the table. Anyways, let's get this channel started. My husband, that is my husband. He probably won't talk much. He's used to just fetching things, and sometimes he'll make fun of me if I mess up. And hopefully that'll be fun. And anyways, I'm going to start off with Art of the Plush. It's a video that I feel really strongly to. That's because she's a seamstress, and as plush maker, I'm a seamstress, though she makes dresses and I make ponies. But we go through the same motions, the same feels. And pretty much, it's just the struggle of plush making and working with customer service sometimes. So we'll start off with this. Let's see. Is the volume? Back people, the volume's not working for this mic. Is it? Oh. I kind of hear something.
It was working before. Did you change any settings?
No, let me check. I didn't touch anything. No. Properties, recording, playback devices. Should be speakers, right? Thank you. Technical difficulties. Oops, still quiet. No, that's recording. I don't need recording. Okay, let's see what's going on here.
Not really. So what was it? Did you like nothing changed in between?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I didn't touch
What the hell is
anything.
going on?
Just started.
Everything's good on this end.
Okay.
Everything's good on this end, hon.
The volume's good.
Yeah, I turned
it was
the volume
playing
up.
earlier. What's wrong? What happened?
We don't know.
Hold on.
Welcome to the confusion of panel life. Don't worry, this is actually the best one so far.
The volume's up really ridiculously high, so
Yeah,
it
well,
was at like 18 beforehand, and it was good to go. So something changed between now and whenever I started playing it earlier, before people started walking in.
huh. It's fun then.
Also, can you verify that everyone's got tickets, because there were a few people sitting down beforehand who didn't actually get them.
Okay, while we're here, whoever doesn't have a ticket,
Oh.
go to my husband. Oh, hey. Oh, that's just,
We're getting feedback, so something's coming through.
oh, maybe she's muted?
It might need to be something that's changed on the computer itself.
I know, that's what I was trying to check earlier. Why is this giving me information?
We're not muted on the board, so.
And, yeah.
Keep this playing until we can figure out what's going
All right,
on.
we're going to play this video in the background, so enjoy as we try to figure this out.
So, right-click on the sound options.
Go away.
Do you want me to do this?
Yeah, you do it. Anyways, so while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and start the rest of my panel. We'll just get back to this in a moment. So how many of you guys are familiar with sewing? Okay. Now, how many of you are familiar with hand sewing? Now, sewing machine. Oh, actually more hands went up for sewing
You're
machine.
already on it.
That's pretty interesting. Oh, you can put your hands down. Rest your arms. Let's see. Now, who's here just because they like plushies and that's it? And who's here who wants to actually learn how to make the plushies? Woo! Yay! It's a fun career. But it takes a lot of work to make it a career. It's not something you should just drop your job for right away and start working on. We might have to cut off Rarity's portion. That might just have to be if she's not going to talk.
That's acceptable.
All right, just enjoy her doing this while I'm talking, I guess. So, anyways, you guys all seen Art of the Plush. We're all bronies here. This is the original first season, so we're good. Anyways, plush making has been a lot of fun for me. I've been doing it for quite some time. Oh, is there? Sorry. Oh, okay. I get distracted easily. I usually get really nervous, oddly enough, but right now I'm actually pretty good. Anyways, back to my job. I pretty much just take orders from everybody and then make them on demand. And,
What's your name?
oh, Kiashan, I've introduced myself.
No, I know. What's your DeviantArt name?
Kiashan.
That's it? Okay.
I'm Kiashan. It's easy. Some people pronounce it Kiashone and I don't get offended. You can say it whichever way, as long as you know who I am, it's fine. Anyways, how many of you are just liking plushies and are just curious how they're made? Oh, wow. So you just want to educate yourself on their process. Okay. Well, we're going to have Sad Rarity just close out on her for now because she's sad. And we'll actually get to the slideshow. Let me get this open. Make sure it's all open up right. And push this button. And I need to push this on pause. There we go. Here is my, what the? One moment. That's not centered right. Is it full on there? Okay. Apparently we're having more technical difficulties. Because I have my slideshows cut off. Let's see. Exit. I might just have to do it like this. Is it fully on there? Yeah, that is weird. Okay, well just do it like this then. All right. And I need to go back because we don't. Okay. So anyways, welcome to the Art of the Plush. And these are some of my works that I've done in the past. Onwards. Okay, these are the basic supplies you'll need for patterning. And obviously you'll need paper, pencil, scissors, and a ruler / protractor. The protractor isn't used too much unless you're making like hooves or if you're trying to round out the rear end of a pony or its head. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If you have really, really big patterns, like if you want big ponies like the ones I see out here, you're definitely going to need newspaper print. Sorry, I keep saying them. I'm going to try to stop that. I'm still slightly nervous. All right, next. All right, so what pony do you want to make? And in this case, we have plenty of options. As you know, we've seen a lot of the show, and there's tons of ponies to make, right? Oh, we're going to do questions later, so we have a Q&A at the end. I forgot to mention that, and also might be a good idea to turn off your phone so everyone doesn't glare at you if your phone rings. Anyways, we're going to move from ponies into, I got to remember to use this. I got to take the mouse away from myself. Okay, so first thing you want to do is research your ponies. And the best thing to do is look up other plushies you've seen that you want to look at, see what they do, see what you like, see what you hate. A lot of the times they have patterns online. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead. A lot of times there is patterns you can find online for free. As you can see in the top that there's 2 patterns from Voodoo Tiki. And I actually started out with those patterns, but I worked my way up to a different pattern after I started developing my own style. But it took me a while to actually make my own pattern because I didn't understand how the millie works. Because I understood flat pancake ponies, but I didn't understand the centerpiece. It was foreign to me at the time. And I grew up sewing, so it tends to be pretty hard when you start out. Where's my husband? Oh, sorry, I'm used to him being here. So, anyways, never copy a pony's pattern from another plush maker because we usually get offended by that. So that's why we always make our own or we buy them. Next is doodles and breakdowns. This is where you find a profile picture of your pony and you start drawing out where you think the scene should go. You want to understand how the pony works. Are you okay?
It's a microphone. It's not going to hurt me.
Okay.
I'm just afraid that I might have hurt it.
Okay. Well, anyways, the purple lines I've drawn on the screen here. Oh, they're on both sides. Hey, I didn't know that. I thought that was only on that side. The purple lines I've drawn on the screens, that's where your seams would be, and that's where you would cut down the pattern pieces. Some people actually do a 3D program and cut it down, which is really neat. As you can see here for the head, that the piece has only 3 pieces, and it's 2 side pieces, and then a center piece we call the head core. And usually the 2 side pieces are mirrored, or flipped, and that's what we label it as, is mirrored on the pattern. And with the body, it's more complex because you need 2 side pieces, but then you need 2 inner legs, and then 2 inner back legs, and then 1 belly. And it gets a little complex. And pretty soon you're going to be like, okay, what's a dart? Because you see I pointed out dart on my screen, right? Well, darts are the best friend. Not really. We're going to move forward. I'll tell you more about darts in a moment. Next thing is shapes. Now, remember how I said you would probably use a protractor for round things? Well, even if you used it for the head, you still need to keep in mind how the shapes move. Because if you draw a circle and you sew it to a circle, what do you get? A pancake. So instead of just having a pancake for a head, you're adding that 3rd piece, the center head core I mentioned earlier. And that's going to add shape, but you're also going to need to add darts, which is why there's a seam and then there's a ... on the face pattern. It's because that's where the darts are, where it's solid. The ... just means that that's the regular piece that's not cut into. if you do anything with squares, you're definitely going to want to use stiff interfacing because fabric will bulge out. It does not stay flat no matter how hard you try. And even when you have interfacing, it's still going to bulge out a little. The only way to prevent bulge is foam. And that's pretty much it. These are all just basic shapes. Next, darts. Remember the darts. This is the hardest thing I have to teach anyone, and I don't know why. It's a really simple concept, but there's a step-by-step there, and it's just a little triangle cut out of the fabric, and then you just fold it over so that the little triangle lines up with the other side, and then you just sew it. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. But it is the hardest thing. I have it at my workshop, and people still get stuck on this, no matter how easy it is. They're like, what do we do with this? I'm like, it's a dart. Yep. And sometimes darts come out curved, as you can see down there, and then some of them are darts like in clothing, and you just have it a triangle shape or a diamond shape. Now scaling. This is a little tricky. Typically when you do scaling, you want to choose the size you're looking for. So usually my ponies are about 12 inches tall. I didn't bring any samples because they're all downstairs. No worries. No, she has a sample. But yeah, they're usually about 12 inches tall. And usually when I lay out the pattern, it's about 13 to 14 inches tall. And then when they sew them together, they shrink because you've got the curve of the face and you're sewing it onto the neck. Because remember how the head was separate from the body? So when you're sewing on the neck, you lose about half an inch there, and you lose half an inch from its head being round. And so everything just squashes down slightly from the pattern. So it's usually about a 1 to 12 inch ratio. So if you have a 12-inch pattern, it's going to be about 11 inches tall. And it's kind of consistent like that. Let's see, is there anything I need to break out? Oh, as for scaling portion-wise, you usually take an image, and it's really, really tricky for me to do scaling, I'm going to be honest. What I normally do is I take a ruler, and I draw out what I want in centimeters, and then I just draw it in how many centimeters I need it, and then I just equal it to inches. So if I want something to be 14 inches tall, then I'll draw out 14 centimeters of that design, and then I'll just do a line sketch until it lines up perfectly. That is the simplest way to do it. Otherwise, you'd have to do more complex math. No, not really. Quit. No.
Okay.
He's making things complicated over here. Don't trust him. Also, you're not talking to the mic.
That's kind of the point.
Okay. Well, anyways, let's see. Is there anything else I could bring up for this? Oh, no. Scaling is pretty much good. Oh, as for the centerpiece, I didn't put in here. Usually, if it's a 12-inch plush, you want about a 1-inch center gore for the belly. And sometimes they need a little chubbier belly, so you usually go about 2 inches, and then you straighten it down to a triangle, just so it can get to the back side. And that's how it connects to the hind legs. It's a little triangle. Here. Now it's the full-scale pieces. As I told you before, you take your scaling piece, and then you make it larger. So after you've drawn everything out, you just draw it out on here, bigger. Sometimes if you want it super big, what I do is I do it smaller, and then I blow it up through my laptop on my printer. It saves a lot of time and a lot of guesswork. So be aware that, what were you going to say? No. Be aware that sometimes when you blow up a small pattern into a bigger one, it doesn't always turn out the same way. It might need more corrections.
Especially if it has involved with weight or something like that.
All right, now pattern testing. Now this is kind of a pain. This is some work by Adam Humphrey that I have permission to use, but he used a bunch of prototypes to test how his pattern will look, and he went through dozens. And this is a really good example of just testing and tweaking, because when you make a new pattern, it's not going to come out right away the way you want it. Usually it takes me 2 tries to get it right, and when I was younger, when I first started it, it probably took me about 5 tries, and even then I'm still tweaking my pattern nowadays. So what you want to do is you just want to change little things, like maybe the dart needs to be longer because the face isn't as round, or maybe the body isn't tall enough. Just change little things at a time. If you do too much, you're going to get a big pony that might have really long legs and then a skinny body, or you might get something like a little dachshund pony. And just do small tweaks. Don't do anything outrageous. You can do multiple tweaks at a time, just only do 1 tweak to a body. So 1 tweak toward the head, 1 tweak towards the legs, 1 tweak toward the back, and that's about it. My husband's doing something. Wave to my husband. I like embarrassing him. It's fun. Okay. Everyone's on page so far, or am I going too fast? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Okay, we're good. Okay. Thank you. Onwards. On to the plush part. The pattern part is a little complex, but it's pretty easy once you get used to it, and especially try using other patterns. It helps a lot to learn. Okay, on to the plush. These are the supplies you need for the plush, not counting the stuff you had to use to make the pattern. You need a really good pair of scissors. Most scissors I use won't make the cut for me, and certain ones work really well. Like I have a Westcott pair, and it fits my hand perfectly. And I've had those for probably 10 months, but before then I had it for 2 years, another version of it, but the rubber wore off, considering how much I use my scissors. I literally wore the handle off. That's how much I love those scissors. And then I went out and bought the same type of scissors, even though I couldn't find them at Walmart anymore. It was funny. As for needle and thread, needles are pretty standard. Thread, you typically want just all-purpose thread, but if you don't trust your hand sewing, go with quilting thread because it's a lot thicker. Then you got fabric, which we'll go over the types of fabric later. Pins, not the writing pins, but the actual pins. Pins and needles, yeah. Those are just used to keep the fabric in place as you're sewing it. And sometimes it's optional, the sewing machine. Some of you may not want to buy a sewing machine, and I understand they are pretty pricey, but they're usually about $200 or less for a decent one. Now, if you start doing this professionally, you tend to want bigger things, and then you'll start buying really expensive ones because you can, and you want them, and they're yours. And then you post pictures on them online so you can show people that you got them because you're so excited about it, and then they're like, I hate you. Because then they want them. We have, us plush makers, we have a group on Facebook, and so we constantly are showing off what we have. And then we're just like, oh, I love your fabric wall, and they're like, you love mine? And it's just this giant wall of fabric. I feel like I'm trolling people now. It's fun. We have fun. So now onwards to fabric types. Okay, so most of the ponies you have out here are made out of minky, which is the most named brand is Shannon. There's a few other ones like I think Simple Plush, or no, it's Top Plush. No, wait, that's a plush maker. I'm getting confused. Anyways, there's some simple minky styles. But the most common we use is Shannon because they have about 100 colors, which is a lot of colors. Because when I started making ponies, we only had about 60 colors. And the last 2 years, it's been piling up with more colors, and I'm like, mine. And I just keep hoarding more colors. Yeah, I actually have like a bunch of shelves, like, you know, the type for the garages that are all stacked up full of fabric. Not laundry.
I'll be honest, it's multiple rainbows and several shades of gray.
Yeah. Anyways, the next thing, when you start out, you typically want to use anti-peel fleece because it's the cheapest, and it has a bit of a pile to it, like minky, but it's better than polar fleece since polar fleece actually pills. It gets these little balls on them, and you just have to shave it away if you have them for a while. Usually when I do testing, I just tested a minky now, but I usually use the ugliest shade of minky I own that no one ever touches because there's some colors that you'll never touch. Brick red. I use brick red for testing because no one ever uses brick red. But when you start out, definitely want to start out with polar fleece or anti-peel fleece and then work your way to minky because minky does get costly. It's about $13 a yard. Sometimes if you're lucky, it's $9 a yard, but that's Black Friday. And that's when you buy like $500 worth of it and like, yeah, you just hoard it. And then my husband's like, why did you do this? I have a fabric addiction, can you tell? I need it. That's what I say, I need it. Cotton. Some people use cotton. It's really weird. I don't know why you would use cotton. It has no stretch to it. And if you want to make it into minky, you're going to have to compensate a lot for your pattern. Because when you do pattern, you do need to think about the stretch of your fabric. Like, if did I typo? Oh, a stitch. It is a stitch.
Oh.
Sorry, made a typo.
You have a pen. We can write that down in the notes.
I will write that down. Okay.
Yeah, you did it.
Thank you.
You did it 3 times.
Did I do it right? Oh, cool.
Yes, you did it here, here, and there.
I need people to proofread my stuff for me. I'm tired when I rewrote this because I do this every year.
Good catch.
You're the first person that's caught this after 2 years of me using this one. Okay, give him a prize. He needs a prize.
Okay.
Yeah, when I go over my panel again and after I remodel it, it's like midnight. He's right there. Hello. Everyone point at him. Now wave your finger. No, joking. But with cotton, there's no stretch, no pile, so it just looks like clothes. Well, we're usually polyester blends, but still. For polar fleece, it's one of the best ways for testing because it has the stretch more like minky, but minky stretches more one way, like this, but the other way it's just kinda stretch. So you gotta keep that in mind when you're working with fleece. When fleece, it just goes everywhere. It's really limber. Next, don't use flannel. This is something I had to learn the hard way. These are my very first pony plushies. I made those in 2012 of February, and I thought they were really good at the time. Don't get down if your ponies look like this. It does take work. And also don't use flannel, please. Please don't use flannel. I regret that rainbow dash, my friend still has it. And her stitches, because the flannel, what it does is it kind of pulls at it when it has stuffing all the time. And he sleeps with her. And so she gets crushed, and so the stitches are kind of showing, which is really weird, because you won't see that on a minky or a police pony. But with flannel, it's just horrible. It's kind of like cotton, except it's softer. It was a better choice than cotton. So please use cotton over fleece or flannel. I thought it was a really good deal because it was $5 a yard, and I could have so many colors, and I was so happy at the time, and then I learned the hard way. I also started out with iron-ons. It took me a while to get to actual embroidery because the machines are expensive, and I didn't know how much I was going to make in the future. But yeah, please don't use flannel. They make me sad. And yeah, but those are my first two ponies. Onwards. The stretch. Remember I mentioned the stretch? Did I spell stretch right?
Yes, you did.
Yay! Okay, I only messed up twice. It's a weird word. Anyways, when it comes to stretch, okay, when you're working with minky, you always want the fur to go downwards, down the leg. You don't really want it to go up its base, and you don't want to mess. You want to make sure everything goes down. Unless it's the ears, because oddly enough, pony fur actually goes up. I didn't know this until last year. So I was making all my pony fur down. It doesn't change the pattern at all, but yeah, pony ear fur just goes up. You know, I bet fursuiters know, but I didn't know. Now, when you're working with flax fur, some people do, and some people use it for the manes, and some people just want really shaggy ponies. You want to use an X-Acto knife, because if you use scissors, you're cutting your fur, and then you're cutting that, and you're getting it all over your lap, and all over the house. And minky does shed a lot, just to let you know. You will never have a speck of minky on your clothes. The only reason I don't have minky on my clothes is because I just bought these this week for this panel. Otherwise, I'd be covered in cat fur and minky fuzz. That's my life. I own 2 cats. Anyways, you want to cut the pattern, trace it out, make sure everything is going the right direction. Sometimes when you're doing the pattern, you draw little arrows to tell you, like, this is where this wing goes. So arrow goes down means pile goes down. Next. Okay, machine versus hand sewing. Now, who was afraid of machines? Raise your hand if you're afraid of machines. And you're probably like, why am I raising my hand? Because I'm still afraid of my machine. I've got my finger stuck under it a few times, so it's fun. Well, we'll get into that later. But not while it was running. That's the good news. Okay, machine sewing. The pros for machines are they're faster, your stitches are even, they are stronger because they're actually 2 threads interlocking. And the cons for a sewing machine is their price. You have to maintain them because you actually have to take the little lint trap out and clean everything out and then put it all back in. It's in the bobbin case. They need to be oiled. And here it's like $200 just to get your machine cleaned, which is ridiculous because I'm from the Midwest. And it takes a week. Like I'm in the Midwest, that was only $60 and it was the next day it was done. Here it's $200 and you have to wait a week. It's just the East Coast, I guess. As for more cons, you also have the fear of the needle. But if you have a phobia of the needle, That would be something you would have to get over if you were doing it professionally, because you wouldn't be making many plushies if you're doing it by hand. Now for hand sewing, it's fairly cheap. It's just the needle. You usually buy those for $100 for $1, not too bad. And it's traditional. And keep in mind, you know those really fancy royalty dresses back in England, the ones that are covered in all that embroidery, it's really, really pretty. Those are all done by hand because embroidery machines didn't exist back then. So it is fairly traditional. Horrible things about it, it's slower. The stitch results sometimes vary. If you're like me, you get really used to going straight. But when I started out as a kid, I was just like all over the place with my line stitching. I just went everywhere. It was pretty much weaving like a road. Finger poking. You're gonna have this problem anyways because even if you do machine sew, you have to hand sew. But you're gonna stab your fingers all the time. And usually while it's the white pony, it's always the white pony. It's Rarity or Celestia. So I literally have blood in those ponies.
What about Sweetie Belle? She's white.
She hasn't caused me any problems.
It's because she's a filly.
The Celestia and the Rarity were the two worst ones, and sometimes Fluttershy. Fluttershy, I got my finger like right above the nail one time with her. But anyway.
You know which one of the two is more innocent then? Sweetie Belle, more kind and innocent than Fluttershy.
Apparently so, at least in my fingers. Huh? We're skipping over that, don't worry. That was all, no more. Okay. And the other thing is, if you're using like a really thick fabric, you definitely need to make sure you have a thimble or pliers, I use pliers. But chances are you're gonna have to poke through the fabric pretty hard with a lot of force, and you can't just get enough grip from one end. And a lot of parts, like with the mane, you have to use pliers just to pull the needle through because it's so thick at that one spot.
I will add this in. If you ever have to go through thick material, never use the plastic cheap thimbles. Get something that's made of metal or something that's tougher.
Okay. He had an issue with that, but it goes along with the other issue I had earlier. Okay, now onwards, plus to the stuffing. Believe it or not, stuffing actually makes a difference. As you can tell, this is the same plush. One of them looks kind of lumpy and sad looking, and one of them looks really firm. And this is my old plush style, by the way. I haven't updated this photo yet. But there's different types of stuffing. I usually just use the Supreme Polyfill. It's better than the Premium Polyfill, which is really confusing because their name's Supreme and Premium sound very good. And you'd think Premium might be better than Supreme, but it's not. But anyways, depending on how you stuff it, it will make a lot of difference. Like this one is compacted. And I wish I had some samples for you guys to touch, but they're stiff. They're like figures stiff. But if you prefer a floppy pony, you're gonna get a little bit lumpy, but it's pretty comfortable. It's cute. But it does make a difference. And I see a lot of people who are beginners make that mistake, is not stuffing their pony properly, or not enough in some sense. And I think that's all I have to say about the stuffing. Okay, these are the two stitches you'll need to know. And like I said, even if you do machine sewing, you're still gonna need to know how to hand sew. Because there's no way you're getting out of hand sewing. That's just obligated duty. The running stitch is just the normal up, down, up, down, up, down, in and out of the fabric. But the ladder stitch is also called the closing stitch. And what it is you have the two pieces of fabric side by side, and you curve the ends inwards to the plush. And then you're running the needle through one end, poke through the fabric, and then you're running it out of the top of the fabric, and you're doing it again that way. And it's just kind of like a ladder. So it's just back and forth. Everyone got that ladder stitch? It's a really important stitch. Thumbs up. All right, here's another example of the ladder stitch, if you didn't get it yet. Okay, you see the black thread on my head here? It's a grub head. You see how it's going back and forth and there's gaps in between it? We're just gonna go to the thumb up system. All right, and that's pretty much what the ladder stitch looks like as you're closing up the plush. And what you do is you just pull it really tight once you're done. But never go past about 1.5 inches where it's loose like that. Otherwise you're gonna get the ladder stitch gap, or it'll be tight right here, and then it's all big right here. So you have to go back and cover that up. Okay. Oh, usually with the ladder stitch, I put it on the back of the head underneath the mane. But a lot of the times when you're doing ponies, like the big ones, you want to have the ladder stitch around the neck, because that's how you're putting the head on, and that's how you put all the manes on, and how you put all the tails on. It's the only way to attach them. Well, unless you have Space Voyager's pattern.
She usually puts it for like the back of the pony's head directly underneath the mane, so that way the mane will cover it up.
So it's usually hidden. You always want to hide it. Okay, extra details. What time is it?
It is currently.
I want to make.
3.
Oh, I have it on my computer.
Yes, you do.
So these are the extra details we're going to go over. Okay. Iron-ons. Those are what I started out with. They come in 2 types. So you've got the black transfers, which will have the white in them, and those ones aren't mirrored. Those are just as you see them, you put them on and iron them on directly. But there's white transfers, or light transfers as they call them, and those ones are actually inverse of what you print. So you have to print everything backwards when you use them. And what I used to do to make them more durable was I would buy the light transfers and melt them onto white cotton, and then I would fabric glue them down to the plush. That way they would be more sturdy. They do age after a while because the liquid will get into it and it will warp the eyes after about a year. So I stopped doing that once I got an embroidery machine. Next is painting on eyes, which is a little hard, but you could use a stencil, or if you're really good with your hands, you can just paint them on. These eyes actually are printed on and then painted for the little guy over there. And that's pretty neat because she actually stuck the fabric through the printer. And there's a tutorial online I can link you to if you want to learn how to print eyes directly onto ponies. You can't do it on fleece, you have to do it on, not fleece, you can't do it on minky, you have to do it on fleece. Okay, next is embroidery, the most expensive method of getting applique on, or anything really. And usually, like I said, you need to buy about a $200 and something machine. That's the cheapest one. It's a Brother PE 400? 550. There's an SE 400, that's right. That some people go with. And it's only like a 2x2 hoop. It's really, really tiny. 4x4, sorry. I don't own that one.
Prizes.
I just upgraded from that one.
Oh, okay. I got a, huh?
Prizes.
Oh, what?
Oh, she pointed it out twice.
That's okay. Oh, we can do it if you want. Don't quit. He's distracting me. I'm going to start ignoring him. Okay. So anyways, embroidery is really, really expensive because you have to pay for the machine first, and then you have to buy threads for it, but you also need to have stabilizer, and you need to have topper and a bottom for the actual minky. Because if you embroider the minky directly, what's going to happen is the little pile is going to stick up between the threads. So you're going to have fur in your design. So what the topper is, it's a water-soluble stabilizer that you can just peel off, and it embroiders directly on that. And you just pull it away. Are you okay?
Yes. Getting tired.
You also need backer because once the minky stretches, so what the backer is, it's kind of like a really stiff cotton. Sometimes they're like paper. I use cutaway, but a lot of plush makers use tearaway. But when I use tearaway, my machine apparently shrinks circles into ovals, and I didn't like that, so I just went with the stiff stuff, so it's cotton cutaway. And you pretty much just need that so your thread doesn't hug, as we call it, because embroidery are huggers. They love to hug fabric, and your designs will become ovaler. Applique is really fun. It's pretty much like embroidery, except you're using fabric to make your image. And it's a lot more work, but there's some plush makers out there like Firefly Twinkle Toes. He only does applique because she doesn't own an embroidery machine. And it's really neat when you are really good at it, but I've tried it, I'm not that great at it. You usually use a zigzag stitch to apply it on, but when I did this, I just used the regular straight stitch / ladder stitch. But that was when I first started out. And let's see, is there anything else I need to talk about that? One moment. See, I forget things, and this is why I have notes. Oh, yeah. It's pretty much just piecing things together. So if you're going to be making the eyes for a pony, you're going to want to put the white down first. And then you're going to put the color down, so the iris. And then you're going to put the black part, the pupil. And then you're going to put the eyelashes on. And you're just going to stack that all together. And it also helps if you have a basting spray, which is kind of like a temporary glue that you could use, and it holds everything in place as you're sewing it. And there's some basting spray. Oh, we'll do questions a little later. Sorry. I forgot what I said now.
Have the basting spray.
Okay, basting spray. Okay. I get easily distracted. I'm sorry. I don't have ADHD or ADD. I just see shiny things and like, ooh. Anyways, basting spray is a temporary glue hold. And there's some that are machine friendly and there's some that isn't, so you just got to read what you're using before you put it under your machine and clog up your machine. Okay, as before I mentioned, don't be afraid to ask for patterns. Don't be afraid to ask plush makers for advice. A lot of the times we don't mind sharing our, sharing anything about our plushies really. The only thing that we don't like people asking is about our patterns, because as you can tell, a lot of plush makers are like, don't ask for our patterns. Just don't ask. We're not giving them to you. No, it's not for sale. And we get really defensive over that because we've spent so many months, sometimes even years, like mine's 3 years old. And we just spend so much time into that pattern, and that's pretty much our bread and butter. So if we gave you that pattern, we just gave you pretty much something we've worked on our whole life for free. And then sometimes people sell them, which is fine, but that's up to them, and it's not usually their main pattern. I think Adam Humphrey's the only one that actually sells his main pattern. Space Voyager, I think, does too, come to think of it. These are other plush makers if you don't know. Yeah, so if you ever wonder why we're really defensive of our pattern, it's because we put a lot of effort into them. Normally when I sell patterns, I usually spend no more than a week on them, and I don't plan to use them for profit for myself in the future, and I figured other people would like to make them. Like I have a toothless pattern that's a little chibi sitting one, and I have a Philomena one that I need to hurry up and round together. Let's see, is there anything else? And also there's plenty of free patterns online. Just Google, there's pony ones on DeviantArt, and there's some really nice ones. Like I started out with Valley Violet's pattern on Etsy, and she still has hers up, and she has some princess ones, and then I just kind of upgraded from there. After many, many years of sewing, it just migrated up to my own style. Okay, so remember how I said I had a fabric wall? This is not half of my fabric wall. I actually changed that. That's what it looked like a year ago. It's about 1/3 of its current size. I get ridiculous when I start buying fabric. I don't know why. It's just I'm compulsive to buy fabric. But it's always a good idea to just have everything organized so you can see how much stock you have. A lot of times I keep my plushies, well, I used to keep them in a plush net back when I lived in Missouri. But now I just kind of put them on top of shelves, and sometimes I use my cages. But it's important to keep them organized because if you're going to sell your plushies, you don't want to put them on your bed. It's kind of taboo to take someone else's plushie that you made for them and then just sleep with them. So just don't do that. Okay, I said that wrong again, didn't I? I'm sorry. Okay, but seriously, no one wants plushies that are crushed. So just put them on shelves, put them, I don't know, anywhere that's not in your vicinity that you're gonna sit on it or something. My brother actually sat on one of my plushies once. I was very devastated. It became a pancake pretty quickly, but that was back before I had like really good stuffing techniques, so everything was just squished. Onwards. Okay, question time. Okay, Q&A. It's Q&A.
I have a question over there.
They have a microphone. They're in charge of Q&A. They're gonna make a line over here. See the guy in the top hat? Go line up with him. And this is a good time to ask for anything I need to clarify on, or if you just want silly questions, go for it.
How many plushies do you think you've made?
Oh goodness. I used to actually keep a tally of that. I know the first year I did it, I made 180. And then the following, and I was only working for half a year. The following year I made about 200 and something, and it just keeps getting more and more. I think this year I'm already at the 120 points because I was working on BronyCon stuff, and I've been adventuring more with more patterns, so I've been a little slower. Next.
One of the things that's hardest for me is the feet and getting them so that they can stand balanced. What's some hints for that?
The best thing to do is when you sew them together, make sure they're pinned, because a lot of times I find when the legs don't even out perfectly, it's because you don't pin them, or I don't pin them. And sometimes if you want them flat hoofed, what I'd use is craft foam. And what I do is I take like 4 layers of craft foam that's adhesive, and I put it down into the bottom. And you could also weigh it down with beads, the little plastic beads. That's pretty much. Next.
Hi, yes. About how long do you think it takes to make one plushie? And is it a good thing to start like while you're doing full-time work? Sorry, that's...
If it's a hobby, if you're just starting out for fun, yeah, go for it. Usually the plushies I make, they take at least 16 hours, and that's at least. When I started out, though, they took me about 6 hours. But that's because I was using print-ons, I wasn't embroidering things. They were smaller, and a bunch of other, they were simpler back then. It was simple pony times. I remember when ponies only had a few colors in their mane, and now they're getting more and more crazy, like saffron. I made a saffron, and man, she took a while. Next.
I have two fins. The reason you're, sorry. Being in the presentation, there was something with, the screen not working.
Oh.
I think it's because one of the projectors is too zoomed in.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that too. That's why I just did this. Thank you.
All right, guys, keep it to the topic, please, with your questions.
What are some tips for properly stuffing a stuffy to make it more compact?
Oh, that's the fun thing. I have a giant wooden rod. No, I don't have a dowel. It's just like a dowel, like you buy at Walmart, and I buy like the half-inch ones to inch ones, and I just use that to compact. It's just a lot of compacting.
Down in the legs.
The wooden rod.
How do you make that bend?
Oh, well, what I do is that you first push it into your fingers, and then you use the wooden rod to compact it.
Oh.
It pretty much does the rest of the work. Once it's in there, it literally guides everything in for you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you use a different material for the mane, and do you stuff it less? So that it has a different shape?
Sometimes. Like, I don't normally use flax fur, but I can. I've used a few different types. Like, one time I used minky with a fleece combo a long time ago when I first started out still, and I was playing with minky. Some people use flax fur. I'm not really good at flax fur. What was the other part of it?
Do you stuff it less for different shapes?
Sometimes I stuff it less depending on how it bends. Like Pinkie Pie's mane needs a bend to it right here, so it needs a little bit of stuffing right at the base of the neck, or a little less.
On the subject of embroidering for the eyes, how do you make them look exactly the same? Is it because of the machine, or is there like a technique where you do both eyes at the same time?
Oh, you could do both eyes at the same time. I've done that. But most plush makers, when they start out, they just flip the file. But I find that the eye highlights don't, they're going cross-eyed somewhat. So I usually make my own separate files. But the machine does it every single time the same way you'd want it. Except sometimes it gets a little wompy. On occasions, your machine will malfunction, but that's just how it goes.
Thank you.
I'm used to hand embroidery, so I was wondering what kind of embroidery stitch does an embroidery machine use?
They pretty much just do the straight stitch.
Okay.
That's all it is. It's just a top stitch. It's just a lot of tight top stitching.
Cool, thanks.
I actually have a pro embroidery machine. Normally, we did commercial stuff, and since my son goes to this convention all the time, I've thought about maybe selling the eyes already made and stuff like that. And I heard about your Facebook thing. Is there a particular site that once I make these that you'd suggest that to reach out to you guys?
I know there's if you want to join a Plush group, there's one on Facebook, and I think it's called Plush Artists United.
Okay.
And as for if you're wanting more details about Plushies, the Pony, he or she, I don't know them personally, they do a lot of patches, and they can tell you how to do eyes for patches.
Okay. All right, and if anyone wants some.
They're downstairs. I know that much.
What kind of paint do you use for the eyes?
Well, typically if you use paint, I haven't used it, but most people just use normal acrylic with gloss.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
By what you were saying, which one's easier, sewing on a machine or by hand?
Well, when I was younger, it was easier for me to do sewing by hand because I was intimidated by the machine, but it is a lot faster and a lot easier if you have the machine.
I actually have two questions. What is a better stitch to use, on what, okay, let me try to find a way to say this that'll make sense. Okay. So, what type of stitch works for different parts of the pony's body? And I forgot my other question.
I'll answer your first one. You can think on it before I go on. Well, the only two stitches you'll ever need is a running stitch and the ladder stitch, as I mentioned before. And the ladder stitch is really just the outside stuff that you can't get in with the machine. And that's pretty much it for the pony sewing.
I remember my second question. It's how do you make the stitching show less?
Well, when you do the running stitch, it's all inside because your seam allowance is all hidden. But with the ladder stitch, you just tuck everything in and you pull real tight. Because it's kind of like the running stitch, but you're looping out and then inwards and then out again. And when you pull tight, it just hides.
Okay.
It's also known as an invisible stitch.
Okay, thanks.
Where do you get the hair for the mane and tail?
Flaxfur or just Minky. It's all online, pretty much. It's fabric.com normally, but Flaxfur or fabric.com is not usually the best. Since I don't normally buy Flaxfur, you might want to ask a fursuiter. I know a few people if you need to get in contact.
Any in here that can raise their paw?
Huh?
Question, as far as embroidery software, what do you find as easy to use or that gives you a lot of options?
Oh, that's fun. I use SEU, which is Stitch Area Universal. I'm currently using their trial, well, it's not a trial, but it's Express, so it limits me to 12,000 stitches, which you don't normally need more than 12,000. Though I'm going to open that cap soon after BronyCon, because that's been one of my dreams. I want to actually own it. But it's the only one I know how to use, and it's been really easy. There's tons of tutorials online. It took me roughly about 2 years to actually know everything I was doing because there's no class on it. Otherwise, I would have figured it out in a month. All right, thank you.
Can you make a plushie of my OC, and how much would it cost?
I'd have to see your OC, but if you come back to me at the end, I can show you and give you an estimate. All right.
Well, we still have about 10 minutes. Is there anything else you'd like to cover? Oh, raffle
Tickets!
time! Raffle time!
See, I have everything filled. Oh no, I dropped some! All right, everyone I dropped is drawn. Okay, we're going to read the last 3 digits because all the front digits are the same. 366, 417, and 578. Can it all come up? These are the last 3 digits. 366, 417, 578. Just come up. Come up. Yeah, just let them pick out what their prize is. Yay! They're miscellaneous prizes. I'll do more in a moment. I'm going to come over here. Or not. I'm going to have to stand here. Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you bring that over here, please? Thank you. Things out when I'm sleeping. I'm sleepy. Hello. Okay, we're looking for 508. The last 3 digits of 508. And we also have 383. All right. Well, that's why I'm calling out a bunch of them, and I have a lot of prizes. All right. 592. Anyone with 592 at the end? Okay. Just come up. Don't just raise your hand. Just come up. That's all you have to do. Don't be shy. Right. Yeah, just give me everything. All right, 532. To be honest, if you probably came up here, I wouldn't have known because my husband doesn't seem to be checking them. 447. Okay. Well, we're going to wait there for a moment. All right. 462. Let's see. There you go. Yep, you can have little keychains. I have a bunch of little things here. Pencils, keychains, ponies, pencil sharpeners, figures, magic wands. 407. Let's see. And we're going to call out 515. And what time is it? Okay. I'm running a little faster than normal. Probably because I didn't play the video. I kid. Or I could add more questions. Okay. 35.6. There's a big gap. They're smart. 515? Thank you. Okay. And 520. Did someone say all? Who said all? Okay, come here. I'm nice. Okay, come here. Everyone starts doing it now. Just go for it. Let's go for it. It's fun. Yep. At some point, I have to stop. I think that's all I need to do with the computer, unless you guys want to see plushies or something, or if you have more questions over the plushies I made. It's kind of rare for people not to ask me about my favorite plushies. My favorite plushies to make would have to be Flutterbat, because she's really, really easy, but she does stab me. Ironically, Pinky doesn't stab me. Yeah, well, no, you know, Pinkamena, the reference. Oh, my favorite character would be Coco Pomel. I just think she's adorable. That's my favorite pony, by the way. My favorite princess is Luna, but that's probably a given. Oh, I have business cards over here, too.